Hey, hi, hello, welcome to the Humor Me podcast. I'm your host, Eliza Kelsey, and I am very happy you're here. Like, seriously, so happy. If this is your first time, think of this as a conversation with a good friend in the car, sipping coffee, and there's no rules. You can say anything wrong here. That's the only rule is this is the messiest place you can find. I am an aspirations person. I read a while ago that expectations are not good because they set yourself up for disappointment. And so I said, all right, I'll aspire. And it turns out I still get disappointed, but it seems to be less painful. So here's an example. I posted my first episode of this Humor Me podcast, which is like the spoken piece to my Substack portfolio of life experience, I guess. And I did 2 episodes, and then I think I've been away now for like 2 months. And I had aspired to do an episode every other week. And I had aspired to have this really cool conversation with a pastor that I befriended. And I had aspired to do a lot of things, and I did that thing where I let all of those aspirations, once they didn't exactly pan out, the imposter syndrome kind of took over and replaced it. And I was just like, why are you even doing this? Like, why are you even having a podcast? Why are you even trying to speak to the world like this? And I think I got scared because I thought the question I was hearing and I was asking myself was, why do you need to do this? And the answer is, I don't need to do this. I don't need to do anything but breathe, eat, and shit. Everything else is icing on the cake in this life. Like, I was talking to my brother-in-law about our purpose, and he thinks our purpose is to be human. And I was like, yeah, no, I think, yeah, you're right. Like, our purpose is to be. And he was like, no, I was very careful with my words. Our purpose is to be human, and like that means to be kind and like to try to be good, not to be perfect, but to like just be trying. And so just ever since that conversation, I've been thinking about like, right, what is purpose? And like, yes, there is that baseline, I think, purpose of to just be. Like, I do think that like on some level we just have to exist, and that's the living and the breathing and the shitting and doing those like basic things. But then there is like, yes, that slightly higher strive for like good, just being like a kind and good intentioned person. But then like there's something deeper, and for whatever reason in me, I just want to like storytell. It's like this crazy thing within me. I have a narrative in my brain that has been there forever. And I don't think it's necessarily special. I think what makes my life special is how normal it is and how simple it is. I think that makes my life like absolutely spectacular. Like, I think I know I have the greatest life I could ever want. And it's just like so filled with magic. But like, I just want to share that, and I want to talk about it. And I have this like imposter syndrome, this idea in my head that like, you can't talk about it. Like, no one wants to hear it. It's either not good enough, or it's not enough, or it's not like big enough. I'm not doing it, whatever. Like, you put like, I'm not like famous. No one wants to hear what I have to say. But then there's also like, oh, why wouldn't someone want to hear what like just a normal average Joe has to say? But then it's like, then do I sound like braggy if I'm like sitting here being like, I love my life? And I think that like, I manifested my home and so much of this, and I do think a lot of it has to do with alignment and being a good person, and like being someone who tries their best to learn in life. And I think that I get rewarded a lot in like the mess that is this world, like karmically, because I do think I try. I know I try. And I think the funny thing is like the parts that I want to share are the funny parts. It's the parts that I fail at, which a lot of times is like these parts of community and like these things of how do we make friends? How do we like join a group. What do we like? I'm terrible but great at it because I've done it so many times because I'm willing to just put myself out there and like make a mistake and fall on my face and let everyone laugh at me, and I'll laugh too. And I guess maybe I'm just hoping that hearing stories from someone like me, or hearing stories about someone like me, or even just hearing the stories that I've been able to experience. Like the story I want to tell today is how community saved me, a woman from community saved me, and I am simply just like a person. She's the hero. And so I just want to share those amazing things. I feel like I'm one of those people who I just meet incredible beings. I've been playing with the wording of this idea. I feel like a soul weaver. Like I feel like I'm just meant to meet people and connect them and like create this intricate web. And I feel like that's a person in a lot of communities, especially like going back through history. There is typically someone who does that, and I wish I knew more so I could speak of examples or like actually correctly. I'm sure in like an indigenous culture they had a name or whatever, you know, like I feel like that's maybe my purpose, is I'm a soul weaver and a storyteller, and so I'm here. And the stories that I really wanted to talk about today, or I guess more the story that I wanted to talk about today, to drive home the point, that we really fucking need community. Like, humor me, but I don't think we're going to make it if we don't start leaning on each other and also allowing people to lean on us. And that's one I got to call I've been trying to be better about, because I am a notorious flaky person. I'm the flakiest person in this world. I'll own it. And it's not good. I need to be there better. I need to be better about being there. And I'm working on it. I've gotten better. But yeah, so basically, okay. Sometimes you have opportunities to save someone's life and you don't even realize it. Like you don't even realize how much you're doing. I was very sick when I was pregnant. I had hyperemesis, which is like extreme morning sickness. All day long, everything I ate, pretty much, it has still really affected my stomach and how I can like eat and stuff. I've always been someone who, like, when I don't feel good, I get sick, like my period, even if I have like I get migraines. So like I'm always throwing up. So there was a time when I had first moved here to Northeast Ohio when I knew nobody. My husband went to Florida for training, and I was alone, and I was rather sick. And I had gone to see my niece and nephew, and I thought maybe I had strep throat because they're kids and they go to school, and so it's very common. And I woke up and my throat was feeling a little sore, so I drove myself to urgent care. When I got to urgent care, I walked in. I remember approaching the front desk and giving the woman like my ID and my insurance and having that conversation, and then telling her I need to sit down. And there was a chair right next to it. I remember sitting, and then being like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. And then the next thing I remember is I was opening a door, and then I was in a chair. So it turns out I was like, oh God, I must have looked insane, stumbling around this waiting room, urgent care waiting room, and this was in winter of 2023, so like February of 2023. So like still pretty close to like COVID. Like it was a busy urgent care. So I'm in there stumbling around. I open like the back door, like where like the doctors and everything are. So like that alerts everybody that like, oh, it's been breached from like the wrong way. And then some kind person had helped me to my chair, and yeah, I had fainted. Embarrassing. Also, I was pregnant, so I was terrified. But mostly it was just embarrassing because I'm a nurse. So, one, nurses make the worst patients. And two, I knew that, like, I was okay, but they called an ambulance. And so then, like, I just was like, oh my God, resources are being wasted. There's actual sick people out there, blah, blah, blah. In retrospect, yes, it was good for me to be there and get that help. But at the time, I was like, oh my God, I don't need this. So I got my first ambulance ride. I got to arrive at the hospital, which it's more of like a big medical center because like I live in like a pretty rural area. So I was far away. I was like 35 minutes away from my house. And now I was separated from my car. So I'm at this hospital. I'm alone, pregnant, hooked up to all these machines. They wouldn't give me an ultrasound because I was only like 2 months, so I wasn't far enough along. And everything else like seemed fine. Like I clearly was just dehydrated, and like it wasn't worrisome. And they could Doppler and find a heartbeat. But like I was still pretty anxious. I was not feeling great, and I also like had like this sore throat that like I was a mess. So then they finished with me. I finished my IV, and they're like, "You're free to go." And then I realized I know nobody. I have nobody's number. I'm alone here. My mother was on her way, but my parents live in Syracuse, and she had to finish work, so she was like 6+ hours away. I didn't have my car. I live in a place that is rather rural, so we have, and this might be different now in 2025, but we had, at the time, no Uber or Lyft, no cabs on a Tuesday at 11 a.m., and so I was stranded it was February in Northeast Ohio. So I was stranded at this hospital, crying in the waiting room, like out by the door where the door was opening and closing and freezing air was hitting me, and I was still throwing up. And like the people there was a man who worked there. I think he worked security. He was at the front door, and he was like, "I would drive you home if I could, but like I can't. I'm the security guy." And fully not your job, dude. This angel of a woman comes over. She's like the hospital concierge. I don't know if you've seen that, but like those like helper people, like when you go to the hospitals and stuff. She comes over, asks me what's going on. I tell her, this is what's happening. She starts calling around the cab companies. They're not open. She calls like the city bus, or no, first she called like a hospital like shuttle thing, and my destination to my car was like 0.3 miles outside of their radius or whatever. It was something ridiculous, but she fought for me. She tried. She gave that man a piece of her mind. So anyways, then she ends up calling like her friend who does not work at this place at all, who has like a fleet of buses that does something for like the city. It's not like the city buses, but it's like a fleet of buses. Anyways, a man ends up coming, picking me up in his bus, driving me to my car. Was like the kindest man ever. He had a snack for me. And like none of this woman didn't have to do, like this was so far above and beyond her job. It was, 45 minutes of her time spent making phone calls, trying to figure this out for me. I would like when I think back about what I would have done, I would have been stranded. I would have been absolutely like screwed. I couldn't walk. It was February. I would have walked. It would have been miserable. Like I am so grateful that I was able to have that situation happen and have it unfold that way, and that I was open to it. We all were talking and like sharing, and we became close enough that she felt the desire to help me out that much. Which is not to like put too much on me. Again, this is a story where she is the hero. But it is a story again of community, where in community, everyone is the winner. Everyone is the team. I think I forget that. Not so much in the sense that like I want to be the winner, but that everyone can help. I get like very, I'm a caretaker. I'm like an elder woman, and I'm an elder female in the unit. Like I care too much. I am too much sometimes. But it's because I love, and because I am able to have like these people. I'm able to meet people where they are, and I feel like I'm often met where I am too, and I'm very grateful for that. And it was just such a surreal instance of people like coming together to literally save me. And it was just profound, I think, for people to come together like that. I don't think, one, we get to see it much, or two, we get to like experience it much. It was really, really beautiful. And that's what we need, is more people to like see each other and and be a hospital concierge. Like, what can I do to help you? Or even just talking, even just sitting and like, I've been trying to ask people like more, instead of like, how are you? Those like open ended questions. I'm still going to keep it open ended. Or I guess instead of asking, are you good? I'll step one, open ended more by saying, how are you? But let's deviate to a step 3 and let's say like, what is going on in your mind right now? I have a friend, Bridget, hey Bridge, who always asked the funniest questions. But honestly, looking back, I think that that's why we had some of the best conversations I've ever had, because like I would walk in the door so busy after school and like I'm like just buzzing and like, oh, I want to get a snack, I want to do this, I want to do that. And Bridget will be coming home from work and she'll be doing the same, like just existing in our chaos, because we are both like just extremely chaotic people. And all of a sudden she'll like stop and she'd look at me and like make this like intense eye contact and be like, have you watched any TV shows lately that you've enjoyed? Or how's your social life? Like just like these silly but great questions that like it would take me a second to answer, because like we don't ask stuff like that anymore. Do you ever think about the way that you talk to people? I have been dissecting that ever since I read this book, Nonviolent Communication. I probably should, before I mention a book, like know who the author is, but that just popped in my head and I'm not going to be able to think of it. But it's called Nonviolent Communication. And ever since, I have been like nonstop thinking about how I communicate and how, I don't want to say how I'm perceived, but how I put myself into conversation, because it's like a choice. It's not so much focusing on what they say, my words are taken, but I'm just trying to be very careful about the words that I'm using. So I'm just trying to be very aware of how I talk to people. And I've, in this past year, like undergone this intense restructuring of not only my ideas of like friendship and community, but also like what I am and who I show up in friendship and community. And so like I'm discovering like all of these bad habits that I used to have when I was talking to people, and how I would have these conversations with friends that we basically were just having the same conversations over and over again. And a lot of it was like, it was storytelling, which is great. But it was the same stories and it was very empty. And maybe hearing that enough is going to give you like a spark of an idea. But like, like those conversations that you have that are just like cyclical, I guess. And so I think I was communicating that way. Like I found myself having that in multiple relationships in multiple ways. Like I wasn't being deep enough with how I was talking to people. And a lot of that comes from not listening enough. If you're not asking the right questions, it's because you're not listening. And so I just have, like been reevaluating and reestablishing how I make connections and how I talk to people, and even like with messaging and stuff. I still get so much anxiety about messaging, especially like video calls and talking. That's why I want to do this more. That's, again, a part of the reason I'm doing this, is because like this is a challenge for me of like, this is hard for me, especially the video aspect of it. And that's why I don't think anything at all about that. But yeah, so like just talking openly. And another thing that helps with that has been, I've been doing a lot of putting myself into situations where I'm kind of uncomfortable. I'm not like scared, but they're just different situations that I've normally been in. Like I've joined a community group. It's a new group that was founded by this wonderful mom, and it's a nonpartisan group that we just want like action and results. And a lot of us are parents and we want our children to have a fucking future. And that's something I wouldn't have done, is like attend a meeting. And I'm going to like city council meetings, and I'm doing these things that I'm putting myself in these situations that I wouldn't have put myself in. And I think a big reason I wouldn't put myself in those situations is because of the imposter syndrome of just being an adult. Like, something about being a younger millennial is I just feel like we're like this gap generation of like forgotten people. Like, I was born in 95. I just feel I relate a lot more to millennial than Gen Z, though I've been told I'm a Gen Z. I had an older brother, so I just think, no, it all, there's so much into it. But anyways, I just feel like I have this, like, this gap, and a lot of that has caused this weird, like, understanding of, it's not a weird, I understand my responsibilities. I understand what it is I'm supposed to do in the world. But I don't understand, I guess it was the communicating. I didn't know how to be that. How to, like, fully present myself as I am an adult. I am a nurse. I am educated. I am sane. I am a parent. I am a homeowner. You know, like I'm a qualified citizen. I'm here. My voice matters. And I think I was scared about being in a room and that also being intimidating, and, like, then not being able to say all those things. But it turned out, like, when I went to the meeting and I went to the room and I sat and I talked to people and I was myself, it went great, because that's how it works when you're yourself, because that's what a good group does. So obviously, I guess if you're not finding a good group, but I was going to start my own, and then 2 days later I met the woman who started this one and invited me in. So start your own. I will help you do that if you need it. If you need that push, I will hold your hand and assist you. But when you find the good group, when you get the good group, and you get to sit and, like, listen and be heard, and also see people who you know are uncomfortable doing the same thing. There was one person who shared, and the only thing that they shared is that they were there because they were trying to find their voice, their name, and that they were there to try to find their voice. And that is why they showed up to, like, a community action group, to, like, give it a label. But it feels like so much more than that. I've just been calling it, like, my neighboring network. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. We've been going to protests together and just conversing about things that are happening, both big and small, like personal, and then local, and then state, and then, like, national, global. You know, everything is welcome, and everyone has space, and everyone gets time. And I think that's been really, really beautiful to see, because I feel like we live in a world where that doesn't happen. We think people don't all deserve that. And I know I'm kind of jumping around, but I read this book called The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. And I mentioned the woman, the hospital concierge, as someone to aspire to be. And there's a woman in the book, her name's Chona, and she's also a woman to aspire to be. She was a Jewish grocery store owner, and the story of the book takes place in, like, the late 1920s, early 1930s in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. And it's about the Black, the Jewish, the white communities, and how they kind of butt heads, but in the end, how they all kind of work together. And it's a very beautiful story. And Chona is someone who, she's a Jewish woman, and she stirs the pot because she says things how they are, and she lets everyone into her store, and she does not, she has, like, an IOU list that she never actually requires people to pay back, you know, like, she's just, like, that kind of person. She's incredible. The book is called The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. And I brought that up because, like, those communities in that book are all surrounded by religion, for the most part, or, like, country of origin. Like, the Jewish community in the book is broken down further into, like, the Romanian Jews and the German Jews and the Hasidic Jews, and, like, all the different, like, places. So, like, it goes even further, the Polish Jews. So it goes even further. And then I feel like there's other communities that, like, are surrounded by, like, school, like PTAs and stuff, and, like, but that's just, like, just parents. And so when you have the religious ones, then it's, like, just the religious people, and, like, where is the community of, like, just people? I feel like that's what we're missing. It's, like, that those communities of just people that are just there truly to just be there. And there's places that you can find it. It's not impossible. The library is a beautiful one. that's where I really, until I found this group, the library is where I've been going for acceptance and space. um, but I guess I just kind of have this dream of more spaces, more communities like that, where we're just here to work together. Like the idea of, I have a friend Erin, and she always talks about like, I want to join church just because like I want to like do bake sales and like volunteer. But it is kind of hard to do. It's not impossible, and I'm not trying to say like I'm not trying to be lazy, but it's like it's different when you don't have that momentum of like the family with it. Like you know, a church community is that family, or it's supposed to be. That was not the experience for me. Well, I guess it was rather familial, but it wasn't a good family experience because I felt like I wanted to be a part of the family, but I wasn't good enough, and I was being shunned and shamed and judged by the family. Which is also sometimes relevant to my family experience. So, do what you will with that. Anywho, so yeah, I guess I'm gonna wrap up this episode, this story, and I just hope that hearing the story of hospital concierge, whose name I wish I could remember more than that. But I never saw her again. I remember trying to go once, and she wasn't on duty, and then I was sick and pregnant, and maybe I'll go back and try to find her. But also it's been 2 years, so who knows? But yeah, okay. Anyways, thank you for listening to me tell my story, and I hope you've enjoyed sitting and having your cup of coffee with me, and I can't wait to hear all about your stories, and I can't wait to share more of mine with you. And so I hope you have a good day. I hope you take a deep breath. I hope you know how worthy you are of love and acceptance and all of that. And just humor me, but smile at someone tomorrow. They might need it just to survive.